So if we look at the key data, and I'd like you to look at your data as well, some trends we can start to see. For example, in this first column, the position of the photo gate increases each and every time. Now, I think it would be a good idea to start recording trends in the box below the data table. So in this case, that box. What happens to these numbers? Do they get bigger? Do they get smaller? Or do they stay the same? If you take a look, they increase each and every time. Now right here there's a little goof, but that was because we couldn't measure on the track, but the pattern remains the same. So right here, if I write the trends that I see, I can start to identify what's going on. And so I see that these numbers increase, and that makes sense because we chose where we put the photo gates. That's what those numbers represent. This is known as the independent variable. For the displacement of the flag, I see that the number stays exactly the same throughout the whole experiment. It stays the same. You know what? That makes sense because the width of the flag never changes. We call this a control variable. Now comes the time to start looking at some numbers that don't follow a really obvious pattern. If we look at these numbers, we see that we have numbers like 0.0093, we got 0.0120, and this is where it takes a little bit of effort to try and understand what the numbers are doing. In reality, these numbers don't change that much. So how is it that I can say that there's not that big a change in this data set? Well, if you look, the largest value is 0.0120 seconds. And the smallest value in the set is 0.0093 seconds, for a difference of 0.0027 seconds. When I actually divide that by the largest value, I get 0.225, which in reality is about 20%. Now if I'm looking for a change, I'm going to be looking for 100% difference, or 200 or 300% difference. So as we can see, these numbers pretty much, they change very little. This is known as the dependent variable. This is the thing that we are actually measuring by doing the experiment. And then finally, I've made all my calculations, and you will see that these numbers are very much within the same very short little window. So I'm going to say that these numbers change very little as well. If you choose to use your data table to complete your laboratory, why don't you make these kinds of notes at the bottom of your data table?